This week I'm showing you all the equipment which I use on a regular basis and helps to make my life as a filmmaker a lot easier. Hello, my name is Simon Cade and this is DSLR Guide. So when I first started this channel, I made a video called What's in My Camera Bag. I wanted to do an update to that, which had 3 parts. So it's going to have the first part, which is about what's in my main camera bag, and then I'm going to talk about audio. I'm also going to talk about lighting equipment. So we get a full range of the equipment, and yes, that's what I'm going to be doing today. Now, all of the equipment will be listed in the description. There'll be a link to where you can find all the product links for UK and US, so you can check that out. And yeah, let's get started. So firstly, let's talk about cameras. The main camera I use is the Canon 600D. Now this is the 650D, but the majority of the time I use the 600D T3i, which is a very inexpensive camera which works very well when you get it in good light. So with that I have the 70-200 2.8L, and then I also have the 17-50 2.8 VC. So these are a great combination, and that pretty much covers me for most occasions, and I've been really happy with those 2 lenses. Now there are a couple of accessories that I think are pretty essential for the 600D. The first one is the battery. So this is the LAN portable battery, and this enables you to have about at least 4 hours of battery life continuously, so that's very, very helpful. And then the other essential accessory is an external viewfinder. This is the Camera QV1, and it simply attaches onto the back with a little magnet and stops the sun from reflecting off the screen, and also gives you an extra point of contact. So that's pretty nice. The next thing is an ND filter. This is the Genus ND filter, and this is a 77mm one, which means it will work on this lens. And then I have a step-up ring which allows it to work on this lens. That way I only need one ND filter for the 2 lenses. Okay, and then lastly in here we have just a couple of batteries, because it's always good to have some regular batteries in case this one doesn't work or something else goes wrong. Okay, and then finally, the last thing you need is some SD cards. These are SanDisk 45 megabytes per second SD cards, which I've found to be very good. Now in the top pouch here, I've got a macro adapter tubes, which works very well, and I've also got a Dinkum flare dinkum, I think is what it's called, which goes on top of the camera and blocks lens flares. And then in the final pouch we have my rig. Now this is the handheld rig, which I've talked about. I made a whole video about this rig, so you can watch that if you're interested in it. But it is essentially a basic 15mm rods setup with a top handle, and then you can attach this to make it into a shoulder mounted one. It's still pretty lightweight though. It doesn't have any counterweight, but I found it to work pretty nicely. And the cage allows me to mount extra things here and here, and it also gives me a top handle, which is really valuable for getting different kinds of shots, but also just carrying the camera around in general makes it a lot easier. Okay, so, and then the final things we have in here are a couple of pens and a pair of scissors for black wrap. So that's everything that I carry on a main shoot except for audio, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about. Okay, so I have a boom pole. The one that I use is just a generic one that I found on eBay, but you can pretty much use anything. I have a boom buddy, which allows me to mount the boom pole to a light stand, which is very, very useful. Then in the main case, I like to keep the Rode VideoMic Pro. Now this is my main on-camera microphone, so I use it mostly just for sync audio, but the idea is that it lives on the camera because it can actually pick up good quality audio straight into the camera because it has the 20 dB setting. Now I also have some headphones and the Rode VC1 cable, which is great for the video mics. And then I also have my main microphone, which is the Rode VideoMic. Now this one is great because you can save a lot of money compared to the Pro, but it works just as well when you plug it into an audio recorder. It just doesn't work very well plugged into the camera. So that's perfect for going on a boom pole, and I use it all the time. Now I also have a lavalier microphone. This is good for some interviews, but it's best for when you need to hide a microphone in a wide shot, for example, or if you're doing a live event where there's a public speaker or something like that. It works really well. And all of these microphones go into the Zoom H1 as the main audio recorder so that you can record it to an SD card. Now I also have a spare battery for the video mics, which is always useful. And the thing I forgot to mention in the video was the grip, which allows you to handhold the Rode video mic and also makes it easier to connect to a boom pole. Okay, so now let's look at lighting equipment. Now you can see how much of a difference it makes, because this shot here now is just using the regular lighting, and it really does make a huge difference. So this equipment is really, really important. So firstly, let's take a look at this light. This is my main light I've been using recently. It's really powerful and is daylight balanced. These are 2 fluorescent bulbs, and this will cost you about £140 for the light and the bulbs separately. But it is a really bright light source and just works brilliantly as a key light. And I think I've talked about this in another video, but it's just really, really good. And then I also have some LEDs. Now the LEDs are nowhere near as bright or as good color accuracy, but they are battery powered, which is super, super helpful. So again, I've got the R300 ring light. So this is a more expensive one than the other LED. This is the Aputure AL528, and these are pretty similar, and it's hard to make a decision about which one's better, but those are pretty nice for low cost LEDs. Now I've got a simple extension lead for the fluorescent lights, and then of course plenty of batteries for the LEDs. You can't have too many of these, and these work with all kinds of LEDs, so they're really good batteries to invest in. Those are the Sony NP-F style batteries. So the next most important thing with lighting equipment is sandbags, because safety should never be overlooked. Put some sandbags on your light stands or C stands. Make sure stuff doesn't fall over, because it's just not worth it. No matter how good your lighting looks, you want to make sure everything gets sandbagged straight away so that you don't have any falling over of equipment. Now, the next thing, we have tape. Now you can see how these reflectors, which is going to be the next thing I was going to talk about, are extremely energetic. The small ones are the crazy ones, but they are pretty nice for bouncing light. They're the 5-in-1 reflectors, so they can diffuse light, bounce light, or block light with the other side. But that one especially is a bit crazy. This is a 32-inch one. I also have a slightly bigger one. I think this one is a bit bigger, and then the biggest one is the 42-inch, I think it is, which is pretty massive, and I like to use this one as diffusion. But as I was saying before the reflectors explosion, we have some gaffer tape, which is absolutely essential. You can do so much with this stuff. I got black and white, and you can also get like chroma key tape and other colours, but that stuff solve pretty much any problem you have on set. And let's see what's next. Another pretty universal thing, this is a Convi clamp. This one's come from Kupo and has a ratcheting handle. I also have another one which doesn't have the ratcheting handle, just has the regular one. And what these do, they have a little hex receiver which you can attach any standard light fitting to, like so, and then you can pivot it around. And what you can do with these, you can mount this to anything between 1/2 inch and 2 inches, I think. With the standard setting, you can use it on a tube like a C-stand, or with this little accessory which comes with it, you can mount it to flat things like so. And these things are super tough, and again, tons of uses. So one of the things I've been recently doing is pairing it with a hex grip head, I think this is. I don't really know what it's called, but the idea with that is then that attaches in here, and then you can mount your, that gives you spin action and also allows you to mount like a grip arm to this setup. So super versatile. Again, grip is all about just building random things out of all these little pieces of equipment. Okay, so now I've cleared up some space, let's talk about some more grip stuff. We have these little pivot heads, or whatever they're called, and these allow you to tilt your fixtures, whether they're in a light stand or a C-stand. Mostly used for light stands, because C-stands you can tilt it already. But I have a cheap one that came with the LED, I have a super cheap one which is pretty horrible, and then this is the nice Manfrotto one, which works a lot better than the others, is a lot smoother and stronger, and I would have to recommend this one. I made a video about that. And those are pretty nice. Again, many uses. Use it to attach reflectors quite regularly. The idea is you take this other piece of equipment, which is a reflector clamp, and once you lock that in there, you can attach your reflectors on a light stand or any other kind of baby pin. So then we also have these clamps. I talked about these in the grip modifiers video, I think, and these are great for diffusion. Again, random things. Grip gear is pretty universal. Now we have some diffusion. This is two pieces of half stop diffusion, I think, and I've basically just got some gaffer tape on here which I can just reuse to tape together and also tape onto a reflector, which is how I've been using it to get an even softer light. Then we have these gels, which are for converting daylight lights to tungsten or anything in between, just making lights darker or of a different colour. Those are pretty nice. Then, in terms of the main supports, we have a couple of light stands. These ones are the cheapest ones I could find, and they don't work for heavy things, but for LEDs and stuff they work pretty well, and reflectors. And then another sandbag, always good, and of course some smaller sandbags. These are actually anchor weights, and these are again for LEDs, and they pair quite nicely with the cheap light stands. Then we have black wrap. This is another one of those universal grip things, in that it's just a way of cutting light, blocking a light source you don't want to interfere with your scene, and flagging and doing all kinds of stuff. Then we have the C-stand. This is a C-stand kit from Kupo. It is essentially a really heavy duty light stand with a grip arm and a grip head, so you can attach any light or anything wherever you want to. It's pretty versatile, and you see on film sets they'll just have hundreds of these things. They are, if you're doing lighting stuff and you haven't got a C-stand, you should definitely think about getting one, or 10. So then we also have this lux meter. This is a cheap version of a spot meter or whatever those things are called, and this basically measures how much light is in this room. So at the moment I've got 61 lux, which is pretty dark, and you can convert this to f-stops or anything else, but the way I like to use this is you hold it up to someone's face and you can see the ratio between the dark side of their face and the lighter side of their face for when you're doing like key and fill ratios. To be honest, I haven't really used it, but there is potential for doing fine-tuning of your lights, because it will tell you how bright everything is. Now I think that is everything. So I hope this has been a entertaining video, and I'll see you next time.